I arrived in New Zealand in the winter of 1973 and I found home. Because a whole bunch of people like me who'd like to explore things and understand how things work. So they're the kind of people that pull watches apart, no intention of ever putting them together again, just wanting to know how they work. And that was exemplified in the first week of arrival in New Zealand. I bought a few properties around Mount Eden. One of them was on the side of the actual mountain, and it had a huge lava flow going through my basement. And being cashed up and nothing better to do, I decided to dig it out. So I went to the local Mitre 10 or Hypol and hired a little Kango hammer, 750 watt job, and I started to drill it into the mountain to remove the mountain from my basement. If you've ever done that, you'll know it goes in past the hearth where it connects to the tall and gets jammed in the mountain. And now you're paying $7 a day for a sculpture. So, being a scientist, you go down the road and you get a 1.5 kilowatt job. And you drill that in next to it. And now you've got a sister sculpture. And this iteration went on until there was a huge pneumatic thing in the driveway. And thankfully for me, a Kiwi guy came over and he had a cigarette on the go, slippers on. He was 78 years old, and he said, "What are you trying to do?" "I'm trying to dig out my basement, make a 4-car garage." He said, "Come and look at my place." And I went over to his place, and it was like somebody got a knife and took out a whole square of Mount Eden out of butter and just discarded it. No reinforcing, bit of damp, beautiful. I said, "That's what I want to do." "How'd you do that?" "Dynamite." And that was my first indoctrination into what makes Kiwis different. You're completely weird. But it was the start of me becoming a New Zealander. And it was a couple of years later when somebody approached me and said, "Would you like to set up the Department of Clinical Pharmacology at the Auckland Medical School?" And I had no basic training at all in pharmacology or even medical knowledge. I mean, I was hopeless. I would go like you to the doctor and you get your x-rays and you open them up, and I would open them up in the waiting room. And this particular occasion, I opened them up and there was this huge cancerous growth in my left lung. So I went in to the doctor as soon as the bell went and I slapped it down and said, "That's not good, is it?" She said, "That's your heart. You'll need one of those." But when somebody asked me 2 years after arriving in New Zealand if I wanted to set up the Department of Clinical Pharmacology, I was a Kiwi, and I said, "Okay," because that's what we do. I published a book earlier this year, and I commend you to try and find it and buy it, called The Power of Us. And it really exemplifies what KiwiNet is about. It's the power of us. Nobody is as clever as all of us. And what I was trying to do with this book was to try and determine what makes us different. Is it that we have this innate number 8 fencing wire mentality, or is it something else? Is it something more elegant? As Einstein said, the most elegant solution is the simplest solution. And it's really hidden in the subtext of this book called New Zealanders Who Dare to Dream. This is the only country in the world, trust me, this is the only country in the world where you can dare to dream and be the person that you want to be and develop the technologies and the things that you want to happen. There's no other country in the world you can change the road rules in a weekend. Trust me, you try and do it in Italy, they'll kill you. There's a guy in the book here called Peter Beck. Anybody heard of Peter Beck? Peter Beck, probably 5% of people. He put a rocket into interstellar space. You can't do that in America, they lock you up. He did it with a bit of funding from Michael Fay in a little island. You can't do it in Australia. The air traffic controllers would want to know where it's going to land. No bloody idea where it landed, because we're Kiwis. So there's a great open source opportunity for us to make game-changing technologies. I've taken on a role as the Deputy Chair of the New Zealand Health Innovation Hub. This is an organisation that really represents all of the health care organisations, DHBs in New Zealand. You can't do that in any other country. This gives us a huge opportunity to collate all of that information and do wonderful things. What we should be doing is communicating with people from all of the other knowledge-based institutions in New Zealand so that we can create magic. Nobody's as clever as all of us. In the book also are people like Bill Buckley. Any show of hands for Bill Buckley? Bill Buckley? bit more, probably 20%. The other 80% should be pretty much shamed because Bill makes 80% of the electromagnets that, sorry, 90%, he keeps apping every time I listen to his speech, but he makes 90% of the electromagnets that go in to make the chips that go into your cell phones. It's not a Silicon Valley company, it's a company in South Auckland that actually rules the world in terms of the starting point. So what does that tell us about us? Well, it tells us that we are incredibly innovative. We do have an open source communication system. We tend to talk to each other. We don't rely on NDAs before we start exploring each other's activities. We are totally open source. We're honest, we're clever, we're thinking people. But more than anything else, we actually can just dare to dream. You can actually say, I want to be this kind of person. I want to start this company. And you'll find another guy in a shed somewhere. Some of the technology that I've developed is really just a series of guys in sheds. And you can always find the next part of technology to solve the problem. But what we do need to do is communicate better with each other. And more importantly, I believe, to celebrate who we are and to take our place on the world stage. We're very bad at it. We're very good at it in the sporting arena. But when you think about the innovations that New Zealanders have brought to the world, we should actually celebrate these. A good example, Colin Murdoch. Anybody heard of Colin Murdoch? Oh, poor old Colin. 0.5%. Every single person in this room has been touched by Colin, and probably 90% of the developed world and probably 30% of the developing world. He invented the plastic disposable hypodermic syringe, which changed and revolutionised modern healthcare. It was a pharmacist in Timaru, and it came out of one simple moment of observation in his garage trying to fix a big pen when he was putting some pieces of wire down the end of the little Bic pen to make it work. And he realised if he could put a piston inside a piece of plastic, he could make a plastic disposable hypodermic syringe. Everybody that invents stuff that's really game-changing is usually not practiced in the art. They're people who just observe things. So our trick is to be the best observing country in the world, the best communicators in the world, and also to start stepping up who we are as a country. When I came to New Zealand in 1973, I didn't know that I could end up with an organisation that changes the lives of millions of people around the globe in terms of blindness prevention, low-cost incubators or nutritional products. None of that would have happened if I hadn't come to New Zealand. New Zealand allowed me to be me, and it gives us a huge opportunity on the world stage to make a difference. One thing that characterises us as a species is that New Zealanders have absolutely no respect for the status quo. We change things, we're not fond of rules, and we propel the human race forwards. I'm ferociously proud to be a New Zealander, and I inspire you to go out and change the world just as I have. Thank you very much.